Well, while there's all of the political noise around Eskom and around our electricity crisis, the fact remains that at the moment, you and I are on stage 4 load shedding. There are many predictions of permanent stage 5 load shedding pretty much for much of next year. In other words, what you've lived through for the last few weeks is going to be what life is going to be like for 2023, quite a long period of it at least. Hilton Trollip is an energy expert. He's a consultant. He also works at UCT. Hilton, good afternoon to you. We all know where we are. We're in stage 4 load shedding. We all know that we're in serious trouble. The key question is, how do we get out of it? So let's start with the leadership issue. Is it more important to get a new CEO for Eskom? Do we need to look at policy and government first?
I would say we need to do both. So I'm not ducking the question, because when the new CEO is appointed, if I was that CEO, I would want a performance contract with government saying that I had certain autonomy in running my executive team, that I'd have a performance contract, and that I wouldn't have government ministers attacking me in the kind of way that Gwede Mantashe attacked Andre de Ruyter, and in the way that Pravin Gordhan and Cyril, I think in cowardly ways, had nothing to say. No CEO, no person, after that kind of attack by that level of seniority of politician, could be effective anymore in their position. So if I was a CEO entering that position, I would want to know that if I was giving my life, because you don't do that job for money, if I was giving my life, because that's what you do, it's a 24/7, 365 job, to trying to address this issue, I wouldn't want to know that after doing it flat out for 6 months, I'd just be taken out from left field.
Okay, there's so many different moving parts to all of this. We've got the Eskom CEO issue. We've also got electricity policy generally. Do you believe that energy policy is going to change at all? And I mean, in a way, Eskom is sort of beholden to policy. We've got 2 separate departments. It's a little bit of a mess, frankly. But at the heart of it, perhaps, is policy that comes, as I understand it, at least from the energy department.
Exactly. There are 2 key policies. One actually comes from the DPE, and that is extracting the national transmission grid from Eskom so that it's not so tied up with the coal fleet disaster. It's a separate function, and we need to get it out. That is government policy. And Jacob Zuma in 2010 said, this year we will have independent system market operator. The grid will be out. Cyril Ramaphosa in 3 sonars, I think, has said this year we will extract it. The finance minister, I think it was Pravin at the time, said this year we will extract the... So we have the policy. We agree it's essential. It doesn't happen. So what happens in policy, what not happening? So let's talk about the other thing. DMRE. We do have a policy on what generation assets must go onto the grid so that we got enough. It's called the Integrated Resource Plan 2019. Firstly, that plan was 7 years late. Secondly, it needs to be updated. Thirdly, it needs to be implemented. And to do that, the DMRE must actively support the plan. And I don't believe that they do, because I hear the minister saying things opposite to the plan. So we have these wonderful consultative processes and fantastic analyses. We come up with policy, and then we have complete indiscipline in the cabinet when it comes to implementing policy. So yes, we need a policy, but we kind of got a good one. The RP, by the way, needs to be updated. And I was listening to a Presidential Climate Commission meeting the other day, and they're central at this, the just energy transition, this big investment coming, which partly will fund the transmission grid. And they've been trying to engage the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. And this is their words. One of them, one of the commissioners, said that they're finding it almost impossible. The DMRE won't engage. The new RP that they're putting together from the Presidential Climate Commission, not some NGO or some interested party, it looks like a black box. So it looks like the DMRE is more and more a law unto itself. And if you don't do what they do, well, you get accused of treason.
Sure. Eskom has so many issues around its power plants. Gwede Mantashe, the energy minister, says Eskom must fix them. There's big discussion around whether the director had the right qualifications. Will an engineer as CEO make a difference?
Not necessarily. Look, and I think it would be beneficial if a CEO, with a strong scientific knowledge and orientation, knowledge set, was appointed. Because if you look at many of the really successful electricity and energy companies in the world, they have got somebody that did engineering or science at some stage. But so that's necessary. But a good CEO, what that person does is they assemble a team of people to whom they delegate the kind of investigations and then decision-making and plans to achieve objectives in different areas. So they have a financial director, they have a technology director, they have an HR director, and that team has to work properly. And also, I've sat on South African SOE boards, 3 of them. That team also has to have trusted relationships. You can't sign a contract every time you take a big decision as part of one of those teams. And similarly, that team has to have trusted relationships with the shareholders, with the board. So inside the board, you need to build these trusted relationships. In the executive, in other words, the chief executive and their team, they have to build those trusted relationships. And then in the other team, the cabinet, they also have to do that. And in South Africa, for Eskom, we've got, I think, Doretta was building a team which was showing a lot of functionality. We've never seen as much transparency, the data portal, the regular reports, the system updates, the outlooks flowing out of Eskom as we saw. He was getting that going because he'd been there for 2 or 3 years. Maybe one of the other CEOs from 2014 to 2019 to Doretta, we had 6 CEOs. If they'd had 3 years, maybe they would have got that right too. The only organization that can keep a CEO beyond just 1 year at Eskom is government. They appoint that CEO, they appoint the board, and then the board appoints the government. But all of our SOEs are sitting with boards. The current Eskom board, I know I'm jumping and changing, but the current board was appointed in October. The previous board had lost half its members. Why would a board member leave the Eskom board, a super interesting job, just go? Why would half of them leave? Because their positions are untenable in the set of relationships created by their relationships with their principals, which is the shareholder, which is the South African government. So there's a massive spat going on in the ANC. That translates into a spat in cabinet. Key ideological differences aren't resolved, and that cascades down into the boards of the SOEs and then into the SOEs. And, that's how it is. I'm not just saying, it's political, it's complicated. That is the problem. That CEO job, a person with the wisdom and the competence to take that job at the moment, they'd probably have the wisdom not to take it. It's a bit of a paradox, but there it is. So it might be prejudging whoever the next CEO that is appointed is, but you have to look back at what's happened to all the previous CEOs. You have to look at the environment you're going into and wonder what's going to happen to you. That's going to be an exceptionally courageous person, or it's going to be some kind of lackey of one of the constituencies in government.
Hilton Trollip, thank you. Energy analyst, as you can hear. Really appreciate the time.